Hi, everyone. Thanks, Perry Ann. Welcome to our fireside chat. I'm Matt Comstock. I'm a shareholder in the DC office of Murphy McGonigle, and I'm the co-chair of our firm's blockchain practice group. I am honored to moderate a conversation today with the co-chairs of the Congressional Blockchain Caucus, Representative Tom Emmer from Minnesota and Representative Darren Soto from Florida. I will let each one of them introduce themselves, and I'll start with you, Congressman Emmer.
Got it, guys. I think I got it.
Yep.
All right.
We can hear you, sir.
Thank you, Matt. Really appreciate it. Darren, great to see you. I look forward to when we can do this in person. I'm Tom Emmer. I'm from the great state of Minnesota, and I've been part of these types of get-togethers in the past. I just think I'm looking forward to this discussion today. Perry Ann, thank you for teeing it up. This is all about making sure that we can keep the best and the brightest here at home, that we can continue to develop new technologies that are going to benefit not just Americans, but everybody around the world. And that we don't have not only a brain drain by having our entrepreneurs flee to areas where they can actually explore and test without risk of an enforcement action after the fact, or an IRS that recharacterizes their earnings after the fact. It's really important that we raise awareness, and I think Darren and I, that's the job of the Blockchain Caucus, is to raise awareness with our colleagues on the Hill, so that people, and he's your mission, Darren, but people like Brad Spencer quit referring to cryptocurrency and this type of discussion we're going to have is a haven for just criminals and tax cheats. This is where the entrepreneurs are, and I know Darren and I face this with all kinds of members that just don't understand this new technology. So Matt, so happy to be part of this discussion with Darren today, and I just appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Congressman Soto.
Thanks so much for the opportunity here today, and it's great to work with my dear friend Tom Emmer, my co-chair for the Blockchain Caucus. We have a scrappy bipartisan group of us, including Foster and Warren Davidson and Gottheimer and Ted Budd and others, because we recognize we have challenges, right? We're innovative leaders, but we have regulatory uncertainty. I represent the Central Florida area. Many of you know us from tourism or from agriculture. We also have a huge tech industry, predominantly in commercial space and the busiest spaceport in the world, and aerospace, simulation and training, biotech, nanotechnology, and computer programming. We know we need the clarity in everything from establishing jurisdiction and definitions for cryptocurrency. It could be a currency, it could be a future, it could be a commodity. On very minimal cases, it'll be a security, but that seems to be an area of tension right now. And we know that this is hurting cryptocurrency firms in the United States, as to this day, we're seeing half a cost go to legal. That's not a way to promote innovation. And we already are educating our constituents and fellow members that cryptocurrency is a fixed ledger. So it'd be a terrible way to commit crimes when you'd have a permanent evidence of the transaction. This is the way forward to protect us from cybersecurity threats and to promote international services transactions, remittances, and a lot of other really exciting ways that cryptocurrency will make doing business more efficient.
Thank you, Congressman. I'd like to build on what you were just saying. I'd like to hear from both of you on the US and how it compares to other countries in terms of blockchain competitiveness. And Congressman Soto, if you could maybe talk a bit about sort of the use of a blockchain technology in commerce and adoption.
Sure. We have the Digital Taxonomy and Token Taxonomy Acts that all of the blockchain members have co-introduced. Warren Davidson has one of them, and I have the other. He's in financial services. I'm in energy and commerce. And it finally creates a new asset called a digital asset, because the 1920s, 1930s definitions of financial assets don't work right now. And it's causing firms to be uncertain about where they stand and which agencies have jurisdiction over what they do. And so it would establish clear definitions for a digital asset. It would establish clear jurisdiction and also look for ways that we could promote competitiveness while protecting consumers. We did see some success last term. At the very end, we passed out portions of the Digital Taxonomy Act and also the Blockchain Innovation Act because everything takes way too long in Washington. It's in the form of studies by the FTC and the Department of Commerce to get at these two issues of regulatory certainty, competitiveness, and protecting consumers, with the goal being that they would come back with those findings over about a year so that our peers can finally be at where all of us in the blockchain caucus are, which is to put pen to paper and establish this regulatory certainty.
Thank you. Congressman Emmer, could you talk a little bit about building on what Congressman Soto said about financial regulation around blockchain?
You bet. I think what I'd like to do, though, is be just a little bit more broad. I think Darren hit on some really important things when it comes to trying to educate our members. The fact that when we're dealing with these new ways of thinking, you've got to have definitions for what is a currency, what is a commodity, what is a security, and what is the regulatory framework that applies to each one. Look, Matt, I think we've got to recognize that we're behind when compared to other places in the world. Other countries have already embraced these technologies, and it seems like some of us are afraid to do that here in this country. And some of that has come from actually the executive branch, the bureaucracies that we're dealing with. Some of it comes from our membership, as we were talking about. That's the purpose of the Blockchain Caucus, is to try and get members more in tune with what's going on. The reticence to accept these new technologies as a positive really has some implications for businesses, the financial markets themselves. And I think Darren touched on this in his opening remarks, our national security. It's the Fed and the Treasury don't seem to be in a rush to develop a central bank digital currency, which I think Perry Ann was talking about before we got started. And it's something that we should be very acutely aware of, since China is moving ahead very quickly with this. If we're going to continue to be the world's reserve currency, we need to have an answer for that. And obviously an answer that protects privacy of Americans. When I was talking in my opening remarks, Matt, I was talking specifically about a entity like the SEC that actually is regulating through enforcement actions. By not having a clear regulatory framework that innovators can comply with, that they can understand and comply with. This is, I think, Darren's reference to the lawyers are making all the money because they're trying to figure out how to do this. I'll give you another example. Canada has 2 Bitcoin ETFs. The United States hasn't even approved one yet. There was not a clear tax regime for virtual currencies until the latter part of 2019. And I think Darren and I would both agree that regime needs work. And then in terms of money transmission, it is an entirely overburdensome process that deters entrepreneurs and small businesses from innovating in the blockchain space when you have to go through and register in 50 different states. I guess I'd conclude by saying we risk falling behind in all of these areas and more if we don't start to get some regulatory certainty and some clarity on this, which, by the way, it goes back to my initial point. It tells investors, entrepreneurs, and innovators that maybe the United States isn't the best place to innovate anymore. And as policymakers, we are not going to let that happen.
So Congressman, let's build on that a little bit. What is it that Congress can and should be doing? I think Congressman Soto mentioned the Token Taxonomy Act. Are there other efforts underway in Congress right now?
Yeah, there are. And great questions. The reason we're having this discussion, I hope we need to enact the Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act. The Financial Action Task Force has proposed a rule change that would be incredibly dangerous to innovation in the United States and blockchain developers and service providers that never take custody of consumer funds. Because this new rule would propose that they would have to register. This would be those that are non-custodial entities would still have to register as money transmitters. And I think first and foremost, it's the Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act, which would allow us to have a federal uniformity to those state laws. Token developers also need a clear framework for determining if their asset is a security or not, which is what Darren was talking about. I think the Securities Clarity Act provides regulatory clarity by amending the securities law to make it clear that a digital token is separate and distinct from a securities offering it may have been part of at the beginning. This way, entrepreneurs can innovate without the fear of the SEC enforcement action down the road. A couple others. I think there also needs to be greater clarity in the tax law, which I was talking about. The regime still needs work. This is so individuals that they can engage with the technologies knowing there are clear guidelines for how they're going to file taxes. I've got a bill called the Safe Harbor for Taxpayers with Forked Assets Act, which would provide a safe harbor for taxpayers with forked digital assets, in which the IRS cannot impose any penalties or fees against individuals that attempt to report these assets until the IRS actually provides sufficient guidance on how to do so. That way you don't get surprised, Matt, after the fact. You go and you innovate, you've done everything according to the rules as far as you understand them, only to have the IRS show up and say, oh no, this is a taxable event. This would allow a safe harbor for that, so they don't have to worry about that. And then it would only be prospective if the IRS changed its determination of the taxable event. Look, taxpayers, I think it's pretty obvious, can only comply when the law is clear. And why don't I stop there? I'm sure Darren's got some other ones as well.
Yeah, Congressman Soto had to step away for a minute. So we'll have to proceed without him for the moment.
All right.
One of the things that you mentioned, Congressman, was some of the bureaucracy that you see in the in the executive branch and somewhat in the legislative branch. What challenges have you found in dealing with your own colleagues in Congress with respect to blockchain technology?
The biggest challenge is the lack of understanding for how these technologies work. It's that simple. In their good faith effort to draft policy or to support rulemaking, that whether it's the bureaucracy or my colleagues, that they think protects consumers, the policy and the rulemaking that's been done has actually hurt consumers, and it's threatening innovation, further innovation. The departments, the agencies, and I would add, I guess, international bodies also have put out harmful guidance, like FinCEN's self-hosted wallets rule, or the FATF's, I think, for lack of a better statement, that's how you say that, their proposed rule that would include virtual asset companies that provide a financial service but don't have control over customer funds, which I referred to earlier, the non-custodial money transmitters. That's what they would call them. I think these are very dangerous to innovation, and I do think it comes from the fact that they don't have an understanding of how the technologies work in the first place. If more members of Congress, quite frankly, those in the executive branch agencies and perhaps even internationally, understood these technologies, I think we'd be able to push back against these regressive initiatives more effectively. But that doesn't mean we're not. We just have to continue to raise awareness. And as the people who are listening to this fireside chat, I think that's what we're calling it, as they know, some of my colleagues in Congress fault crypto all the time, thinking it's simply a great tool to be used to commit financial crimes. Well, that can't be farther from the truth. In fact, there's a new Crypto Council for Innovation that's out. You might have heard of them, Matt. Square, Coinbase, Fidelity, and Paradigm are sponsoring this. They've got a report that's out recently that says people, the criminals are actually moving away from Bitcoin. You heard Darren talk about why. I think the U.S. dollar, it is still, cash is king when it comes to being used for financial crimes more than cryptocurrencies. And I hope that some of my colleagues in Congress can come to realize this and focus on the promises that cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology can offer to our society. And that's our goal at the Blockchain Caucus.
Thank you, Congressman. So, given everything, all of the issues you've just identified, what are some priorities for the upcoming year, in Congress or otherwise?
Well, crypto and blockchain are in the news every single day. Obviously, people are paying attention to these emerging technologies, and they're interested in a way that, they weren't a year or two ago. With the caucus, and I hope, good, Darren's back. I think Darren will confirm with the caucus, we're going to hold member and staff level briefings on timely issues. Those that are curious to learn more about what they're reading in the news, whether it's about NFTs or how blockchain can be used to achieve settlements and trading, they're going to need a place to go and learn right now. And I think that's what the Blockchain Caucus can focus on. I think we're also going to focus on, make it clear that we're focusing on blockchain and crypto, at least from my perspective. I don't know if Darren agrees with that, but we want the caucus to be a place where members and staff can learn these things on a deeper level, because a deeper understanding really is going to be important for Congress to develop good policy in this space. And look, I think the reason Darren and I are involved, and I'll let him speak for himself, I think we realized early on that bad policy when it comes to blockchain and crypto and everything that's related to it, these technologies, it could sour these technologies and hinder the growth, which I think would be harmful for our future.
Sure, and I certainly concur about bringing more members and staff in to familiarize themselves. We've also been working on this in several committees, particularly financial services, particularly in energy and commerce. Last term, we as a caucus put out letters for everything from utilizing blockchain to help with the distribution of personal protective equipment and vaccines to considering the use of cryptocurrency for stimulus checks. So those were things we pushed. The last administration and this administration may not be there yet, but we're going to keep pushing to get there. There have been some other major victories, though, that have happened, and most of them have been through the appropriations process. We're able to get IRS tax guidance on de minimis transactions into the 2021 appropriations package. We were able to get some guidance to the SEC and FTC on protection from fraudulent marketing of crypto projects. In energy and blockchain, we required the DOE, the Department of Energy, to coordinate research on the need for new blockchain solutions that support grid modernization. With the FDA, we have them utilizing a blockchain for food traceability, and we're able to allocate $4 million for that. We set out for OPM, Office of Personnel Management, and the Veterans Administration to consider using blockchain to organize their IT in the case of OPM and more efficiently organize dates and decrease wait times for our veterans. And where we're going with this eventually, in addition to the two key pieces of legislation to establish the definitions and jurisdiction, is for a blockchain center of excellence, potentially in commerce, that would help spearhead government-wide initiatives in blockchain. And finally, we got into the House NDAA, but were kicked out by the Senate, and that's where Republicans and Democrats in the House can always rally around our other competitors, the senators. We got in technology that would require a qualitative military edge for the use of blockchain technology for the military, but that got bumped out in the in conference. But the fact that it passed the House shows that and this of course is critical for communications between our troops. I'm not going to go too into it, but that and blocking against cyber attacks, which we know we're under constant threat of. So there have been victories. There have been things we've worked on, mostly flying below the radar in appropriations, but we need to get the big prize done, which is the statutes and jurisdiction and definitions to create that certainty to really let blockchain and cryptocurrency flow and improve in the United States.
Thank you for that. If you don't mind, I'd like to, we've gotten a couple of questions from the audience, and there's, excuse me, a theme or an issue that I think a lot of people keep coming back to, and both of you have mentioned as well, and that's the digital dollar. As you both know, there are stable coins as well, and stable coins are growing in popularity, for payment purposes. Do you see any tension between the use of stable coins and a digital dollar? Does one make sense in certain circumstances but not in the others? I would appreciate your thoughts on stable coins versus the digital dollar.
Well, I would first say I think there's room for all these different options. We already have digital currency under the US dollar. How many people use a paper dollar any day of the week? We utilize just old technology to have that digital currency of our bank accounts and our debit cards. Cryptocurrency is about making it more secure going forward with a better technology. We have different ways. We have transactions, everything from trading real estate and stocks and bonds to cryptocurrency to any other number of trades that may be of value in our economy. So I view there to be room for a lot of these different things, but I don't think government should try to overreach and take over this very innovative space. I think that's something that we would look to down the line as cryptocurrency matures and is a place where we could have that space for that. But this is not something we're pushing right now, but it's something that, along with other areas of government utilizing blockchain technology, that I personally am open-minded to, but we're not there yet. We need to give more ability for the private sector to develop this nascent but growing industry.
I think the greatest thing you just heard from Darren Soto is this is the place, and this is just coming from a Republican on the other side of the aisle, that there aren't sides of the aisle on this issue. There are only people who are actually willing to dive into it and learn it, or they're already working in it. And there are people that are afraid to death of it because it's not the world that they understood before they came to Congress. And those are the people that we have to educate. I think, like Darren says, I don't care if it's stable coins, non-fungible tokens, which I mentioned earlier. All kinds of different things are going to be created in this space and should be. And I love it because it's not about being a Republican or a Democrat. You see Darren Soto and Tom Emmer sitting in front of you that probably represent on certain policies two completely different opposite ends of the earth, I would guess. Guess what? We take all that off and we agree when it comes to too much government in this space at this time is not a good thing. Does that mean that we think that there should be the Wild West and there should be absolutely no government? Absolutely not. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons we have the blockchain caucus, because we got to find that balance. And we've got to make sure that people aren't learning the rules of the road because some government agency decides that they don't like what they did. We've got to give people the incentive, and we've got to give them the environment to continue to grow. When it comes to this digital dollar, which started this question, look, I think Darren's going to be a lot like me, even though maybe we differ a little bit on the fact that I do think the U.S. has to figure out whether it's the way we transact business now, Darren, or if it's with a quote unquote digital dollar issued by the Treasury, how we maintain our status as the reserve currency in the world based on what China's doing, how we remain competitive and how we can continue to lead. That being said, I think the place where, once again, our party labels, whatever you want to call it, disappear. Whatever they put out, we want to make sure that those privacy considerations are paramount. I don't think we want what they have in China, which is they can monitor every movement, everything that that their citizens are doing. That's not what I think either one of us would advocate for, or the other members of the blockchain caucus. So I think that's probably going to be the bigger issue as we go forward. Jay Powell said recently, we're not in a hurry. We just want to make sure it's done right. Well, I think the privacy issue, maintaining those privacy issues are going to be a primary concern for everyone at the Treasury, in the different agencies. But I'll guarantee you, for your elected officials, Republican and Democrat, that's going to be one of the primary issues.
Thank you. So we are running out of time. So Congressman Soto, Congressman Emmer, I'd like to give you, a minute to make a closing statement. And Congressman Soto, I'll begin with you.
Thanks so much. Tom had mentioned about China and their aggressiveness in this area, and I think that's one of the main reasons we need to continue down this road. This is a battle for the free world. Economic rivals like China don't share our values of democracy, of equal rights. And if they end up dominating the world global financial system, it's going to be a very different world than we live in right now, which is one of the main driving reasons, along with fostering innovation here in the United States, which means higher paying jobs, that this is so important. This is about continuing our shared values of democracy, of equality across the free world. And areas like Europe, areas like Eastern Asia, where they have some democracies like a Japan or Korea or others, Australia, they're looking to us to help lead the free Western democratic world in various different spaces. And in the financial services area, this is one of the biggest ones that we need to continue to move forward on.
Yeah, I would say this is I'd echo what Darren just said, and I'd say this is a huge moment in our world's history. This is where we're going to take a huge leap forward. And the question is it going to happen in the United States of America? The interesting thing for people like me, I look at this and say, we have large concentrations of our population in big cities because that's where access to services occurs. This next age, the technology age, of which blockchain and crypto and everything related to it are such a big part, this has the opportunity to decentralize all of that. But more importantly, it has the potential to put us as the individual in charge of our own destiny. It puts people in the financial system that never had an opportunity before. It can create new opportunities for everyone, not just those with the ability to negotiate with our financial systems, but those that are our financial services industry, but those that haven't in the past. I think we have to look at what happened with the internet. Government got out of the way and the internet became what it is. We need to look at this much the same way. We need to take a light touch approach when it comes to this. But we also have to recognize it's time to get our colleagues in Congress up to speed before we miss this next great opportunity. And I think we're well into it. Now we got to make sure that we allow it to foster and grow. And we've got to make sure government agencies not only create an environment conducive for that innovation and growth, but that Darren and I, through the caucus and our fellow members in Congress, both on the House side, where there seems to be a little bit more creativity, Darren, as opposed to the little older population on the other side of the building. But both sides, we've got to get these guys up to speed so that they recognize the opportunity that exists, not just for Americans and our future, but frankly for the entire world. And we should be leading in that. Really appreciate you doing this, John.
Well, thank you very much. I very much appreciate both of you taking the time to speak with us today. This has been a great discussion about important blockchain issues that face our country. And thanks to the audience for joining in as well. Have a good day.